we are joined by Professor Stephen Forsey from the Department of Chemistry at the University of Waterloo. We're going to be talking about improving student engagement with peer assessment in large courses.
I started Kritik quite early on, and I really needed with my large classes some way of asking questions in which it's not the multiple choice sort of format, and engage them to be able to draw and write. So I teach organic chemistry, which is very visual, so there's a lot of drawing, and there's a lot of need to understand exactly the concepts. And multiple choice with my class, it's not really engaging them at all. And so when I went to try to use Kritik for the first time, I found that I was able to ask them to write, to explain, to be able to draw a mechanism, draw a reaction. And so that really engaged. And of course, when students have to mark someone else's assignment, then they are seeing it maybe in a different perspective, seeing it written a different way. It could be totally correct. And but they're learning that it doesn't have to be exactly as the marking scheme. There isn't really, in my course, there isn't much discussion. It's either right or wrong, but they need to explain it in a proper way if I'm asking them to explain a concept. And so using peer assessment effectively in STEM courses, yeah, it just brings that extra level of discussion that's needed through discussing with students how to do the assignment, students discussing with each other or myself when they're marking it. And then of course they can give a feedback, whether or not they were feedback to their markers to say that they did a good job. Was it engaging? Did you help me learn? So it's a nice whole feedback system, especially now with students coming back after COVID. They're a different type of person, a different type of student, I think. A little bit more timid. They're not used to social interactions, which I found very interesting. Even just in class, you have a flipped classroom. So getting them to discuss stuff in class was kind of hard, and they're getting better now. But talk to the person beside you. It was very difficult. So I think social interaction in the classroom, and then what we're doing is taking the learning outside the classroom with the Kritik peer learning methods. It's very quickly, timely feedback. If you wait a week, then they've forgotten what they've done. So that's really important to be able to think about what they've done almost immediately. Save time grading as well. So around 700 students, or I would have around 30 petitions. And I think you'll talk about petitions later on a bit more, but our class is around 500, I only have about 19 or 20. So just take a little bit of time to go through the petitions. They feel someone's marking incorrectly, and then you just go through and mark them yourself, which could take a couple hours. But compared to the time it would take to mark all these assignments, or the team of TAs that I used to have a team of TAs mark handwritten assignments. It's a really big time saver. With that calibration assignment, they're just answering, marking questions. And this is a nice way to introduce them to Kritik, because all they're doing is marking. And this calibration allows them to see how closely they're marking to the way I would mark those assignments. And so I actually use old assignments and use old student answers. And so it's a nice way to introduce them into how to use Kritik without having to do a creation.